Welcome to We Are Not Here to Tick a Box with David Kane and Debbie Hayes. Episode 5, Gratitude. So welcome back again to our podcast, everybody. And at the end of episode number 4 on self-reflection, I started to talk about the importance of self-gratitude and how you get a good night's sleep at the end of doing that exercise. We're not going to be talking about sleep. We're not going there. But then, we then thought, well, hang on a moment. Self-gratitude is one thing, but what's the impact of gratitude in the workplace? And that's where we're going to be going today. And Debbie's going to start us off.
So I think what sprang to mind to me is I think it's important that we anchor how useful gratitude in the workplace can be. I think sometimes gratitude in its sort of very public light is seen as a very self-reflective thing to have gratitude for our own life. But I think in a business context, what I've seen is the real power that can happen through having gratitude to others. And it can be so simple. And I think simplicity is something that we really need to cherish. Because when we can give like a simple thank you for your contribution today, the impact that has on somebody, knowing that their efforts, their contribution towards either a project or in achieving something, I have found in terms of my own client base, it is just hugely motivational.
Yeah.
Because our desire to contribute, it is so innate.
Yeah.
So when we can just take that reflection, going back to reflection again, and noticing what we notice, what I noticed from the last episode is piecing all those things together. Actually gratitude in the workplace is huge. And people don't want to be patronized with this. It's got to have that genuine sincerity to it. But the power of a thank you and showing gratitude to other people really can motivate people and just give them that sense that they have been recognized, and that it is huge. And I think we've got to look at the flip of that actually if we don't give gratitude to people, where does that lead us to?
I'm going to throw a grenade.
Go on.
The amount of times in my working life that I've heard the words, they're doing the job we pay them for. I've heard that so many times. They're just doing the job that we pay them to do. Now, if you're coming from that position, then the culture of that business is not one of gratitude, is it?
Not at all.
Because, I think what people need to understand is that, they might be doing the job that we pay them for, but they're doing it exceptionally well. And not every employee or individual is exceptional in their execution. And for me, gratitude as well doesn't always have to be a KPI. It doesn't have to be the sale. It doesn't have to be the customer satisfaction. It can be simple things such as their attitude.
Exactly. And it comes back to this thing of simplicity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is it around somebody's support to another team member? Is it just their presence? The way that they conduct themselves, because again, if you sort of take that example, somebody that comes in like a storm and the pollution that can cause versus somebody that can really have that positive influence on the team. Yeah. I mean, those are huge factors that can be really easily overlooked.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of things that you could look for to give gratitude towards in a workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, as we were talking about this being the next podcast that we did, my mind went back to a time when I was basically I was overseeing multiple sites, and it was quite ironic because one site was performing pretty easily, the other one there was a disconnect, and there was a bit of a. I have to be honest, you know, there was a bit of a disconnect between me and the people because maybe, you know, we talked about vulnerability. You know, perhaps my vulnerability wasn't where it needed to be. And I remember we did a cascade, and I can remember we went off site, we went to a hotel, we did a cascade, and a part of that cascade was I put a picture of my family up because I was the head of that business. I put a picture of my family up, and I said, on behalf of my family, thank you to the people in the room. On behalf of my family, thank you, because I could not be their support without you. And the whole, in that particular location, from that day on, there was a seismic shift in the togetherness of the team, and certainly the way I was perceived as their leader in that team. You know, so again, going back to vulnerability and now gratitude, you know, the two going hand in hand. That was a massive moment for me in that particular location, and we never look back. We never look back from that point on. You know, we managed to work out a porta cabins and not fall out for a year, because that's very, very stressful when you're doing a rebuild of a site and you're still working on that site. That was stressful, but I have to say we did really, really well. We got through it, and that's more of a reflection on them than it certainly was me. But I think the fact that, again, I always say leaders go first. The fact that I showed vulnerability, the fact that I showed gratitude, I think that was a big step forward, and I think it changed the culture of that particular site from that point on.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't need to be grandiose either.
No.
Some people don't want a thank you that is like really in the spotlight. There are some people that motivation that can feel very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's all about the sincerity behind the thank you, isn't it? And I think, you know, when you link that back to your family, that's what would have hit people's hearts, isn't it? Because it really anchored into something very personable but tangible. So I think when we can give those very heartfelt thank yous, that would count so much more than a ceremony of certificates often.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, in all of our lives, titles come and go. The only title that you keep is probably mummy and daddy. You know, you've got to earn the right to keep that one as well. But ultimately, you know, they're probably some of the only titles that you keep for your entire life. You know, those bonds of relationships. But, you know, in a working environment, I mean, again, going to a different site, and you talk about gratitude prior to my arrival at that site. I remember going on a Christmas, you know, a Christmas day.
Yeah.
And one of the cleaners, one of the technicians invited one of the cleaners, and I'd only been there for 3 or 4 months. And, you know, I'm stood at the bar, and this cleaner really tentatively comes walking up to me. And you've got to think about this from the point of view of gratitude. You know, gratitude is not seeing a title. Gratitude is respecting a person. Absolutely. And she came over to me and she said that, you know, I hope you don't mind that I've come, and you know, I appreciate I'm only a cleaner. And they were the words that came out of my mouth. I'm only a cleaner. I went, whoa.
Yeah.
You are not. I said, you are not only anything. I said, at the end of the day, if you didn't do your job, is vitally important to the success of this site. Because if our site is not clean, we cannot give the service that we give. So you are not only anything. You're a very important part of this business, and you deserve to be in this room. Enjoy your evening. And you could see the shock on her face that I'd uttered those words. And you've got to think, well, why have you never felt like this before? What has created this? And then think of the quality of the work or the motivation that she would probably, up until that day, was going into there with. And perhaps, just perhaps, from that day on, when she did come in, she probably executed a job with far more gusto because she felt valued.
Exactly. And it's just, you you can't say enough, I think, about the value that brings, can you?
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think it's why we really wanted to honour the power of gratitude in this episode, because although it sounds very simple, do not underestimate the power and the value of it, because it can really bring such huge rewards. And my invitation to everybody listening would be to say to you, where can you give gratitude today? How can you show that gratitude today?
Yeah.
To somebody, and make that daily practice, because and witness for yourself what difference that makes.
I think, you know, and again, reflecting on my career and what I've seen, I think the other thing that as well people need to be very aware of is that, you know, there are sexy roles in a business. I'll say that we can, yeah. There's sexy roles in a business, yeah, and then there's the unglamorous roles in a business. And you know, I've seen over the years this clamour to, you know, salesman of the month award, for example. But there's so many different departments that work. That again, going back to this, you know, you're all part of this big machine, and if one thing falls down, you know, I always talk about business actually, and we've never spoke about this. You'll find this quite interesting, I think. But I always call it the biological organism analogy is what I call it. That sounds quite grand. and basically what it is if you actually look at a business as a human body, and the brain is a department, the heart is a department, the liver is a department, etc., etc. If one of those fail, that body cannot live. Or if one of those become ill, the rest cannot function to capacity. And by seeing a business in that way, you know, by seeing a business that the blood is the employees going around the business, the air is the customers coming into the business. So you can think of a business as a body, and to look at it that way, it gives you a different perspective on how you look at that business. And then what, you know, coming back to gratitude, you know, you've got to show gratitude to the non-sexy roles, perhaps those non-customer facing roles, in equal measure as you show gratitude to the ones who are maybe sealing a deal or doing whatever they're doing. You know, it's about fully appreciating everybody's got a role to play. I saw a LinkedIn post only the other week where, and I talk about, again, another grenade, which department is the most important to a business? And people were starting to argue about which department was the best. And I just went in there and I said, find the question completely inappropriate. Every department is as important as the other. And anybody who doesn't see it that way, actually, is probably a detriment to that business. I just couldn't understand where they were going with it. But, you know, again, you talk about gratitude. If you've got people walking around a business who believe that they are better just because of the role they do than anybody else, that, again, is diluting the gratitude that may be being shown at a higher or lower level.
Yeah, because it's not showing appreciation towards that function. And I think I'm going to extend my invite now to say, how could you show gratitude towards somebody in another department? Because we've all seen silo mentality within businesses and the division that creates.
Oof.
So what difference might that make to a business if we could each step into showing gratitude towards those other departments? What fusion would happen then with those departments? How would that integrate the whole business if we could genuinely and sincerely show gratitude to every part of that department?
There you go.
I hope you accept my invitation.
Well, you know, again, we've managed to do a podcast there on gratitude, but again, you can see how the synergies between this one and previous ones, you know, all of these things do you know, overlap. They do impact on each other. But yeah,
all intrinsic.
Are you going to take on Debbie's challenge? Do you need help and assistance with Debbie's challenge? We will be absolutely delighted to hear from you. So without further ado, we'll bring podcast number 5 to a close, and we will see you all in podcast number 6. Thanks very much, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Join us again next week for episode 6, Silo Mentality.